One of the most important processes in your MSP is new client onboarding. It sets the client and your team up for success. So doing this really well is very important. It's so important that I created a couple videos about it about a year ago, and those are some of my most watched videos. Today I'm going to revisit this a little bit. I'm not going to rehash the whole thing, but my video idea today is all about sort of the top 5 ways to level up your onboarding process. My name is Adam Henneman. Welcome to Ramblings of a Geek. I've been in the MSP space for a better part of a couple of decades, and I have been a part of a lot of onboardings, some good, some bad, somewhere in the middle. And the idea though is that if you are always iterating and making your onboarding process better, your clients will appreciate it, your team will appreciate it, and you'll have a more successful MSP for it at the end of the day. So in thinking about the 5 ways to level up your onboarding process, the first thing I want to talk about is making it a project. Now, I mentioned this a little bit in the previous videos, but the reality is that you must run this thing like a project. And I've talked to a lot of MSPs over the course of the last year, and many are still doing it as a ticket with a bunch of tasks in it, which is not quite enough. In fact, I want you to run it like a project and then learn from that data. If you just have a ticket with a bunch of tasks in it, it's pretty tough to learn from that. So I think you should build a project template and then work your way through a template and then level it up as you go, right? The whole point of this video is that you want to iterate on this process on a regular basis. Now, having a project template is going to make your life a lot easier. And when you think about building out your template, I think it's important that you cover a number of different things, right? If you think about the previous onboarding videos, I talked a lot about tool deployment, documentation, and issue resolving, right? Those types of things, and then go live and some of the other milestones. If you think about the different pieces that go into your onboarding process, those are the things that should be there. You should have a standard set of milestones that you want to track every single time. And that way you can build out your template, you can work your projects, and you can learn from them as you go, right? A lot of times what we do as MSPs is we are so busy doing all of the things that you don't take the time to take a breath and understand what you did or didn't do well in the previous period of work. In this case, I think you should do a post-mortem of every single onboarding because I think that's a really smart thing to do. If you're getting some value out of this video, please go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. It really does help me out. Also, I'd love to hear about your onboarding process. What works for you? What doesn't work for you? What could you do better? Because if I can improve my content and you can improve your onboarding process, we both win. Item number 2 is create a checklist of all of the things that you need to do during an onboarding. Now, it's a little bit related, but still a little bit different than your project plan. In fact, I spent some time over the last year to build out a checklist and a demo project plan that you can use. I'm actually going to drop a link in the description of this video for you to be able to go ahead and grab it. It's completely free. If you want to use it, great. And if you don't, also fine as well. In my template for the checklist, I created 3 sections of data. And the first one is information needed from the client. Now, these are things like admin passwords, previous MSP info, internet provider info. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you need from the client in order for you to have a successful onboarding. And if you don't have parts of it or all of it, you're in trouble, right? So this is a big section, and this is one of the very first things you need to communicate with your client. And then in the second section, it's all about technical documentation, the different documentation types of things that you need to capture from your client's stuff. Things like your network information, which includes ISP and Wi-Fi and all those other things, server information, backup information, security information, web information, and then some process stuff, right? How do you create new users? What about new computers? Any specific line of business stuff? The idea is that if you work your way all the way through these things, you're going to end up with a much better situation. And then the last thing, and this is the thing that I think is one of the most important pieces, is from a documentation perspective, is an article or an entry or whatever your system calls it about what makes that client be online, right? And that's different for every single client. Most clients need internet and a server or 2 or whatever, plus a couple different lines of business applications, but what does that mean for every different client? I like to use the analogy of, if you might have a client that has a label printer, right? And if that label printer goes down, they don't care at all because they use it twice a year, no big deal. But if a different client that does lots and lots of shipping has that same label printer go down, that's a big deal for them, right? So the idea is that you want to make sure you're documenting what makes that client be online, so that way when they call, you have an idea as to what's really important and what's maybe not so much. And then lastly on this checklist is a whole section on core onboarding tasks, right? Deploying your tools, doing the documentation, client go live. Basically the idea is that if you're working your way through your onboarding process and you're checking things off as you go, you're in a pretty good spot. Secondarily, in this spreadsheet is a whole section for project plan. You can actually kind of copy and paste some of those information into your PSA. So please feel free to use this checklist however you feel like it works within your business. Like I said, totally free. Grab it in the description of the video below. Not only do I do these videos about once a week, I also release a newsletter about once a month. I'm gonna drop the link to the newsletter in the description of this video, and I'll put it on the screen as well. The third tip for upgrading your onboarding process is to make sure you're communicating with your client very clearly. Clients oftentimes feel like IT is done to them because, you know, as IT folks, we're like moving on, doing the thing, right? And the problem is, it's really easy for us to completely like blast by like what they're going to feel and see during any particular project. Onboarding is no different. So make sure that you're setting up the client communication all the way through the project, so that way they know what to expect overall, and then as you're working your way through it, to let them know what's coming next, right? And that's the two core pieces of any project. It is good communication on the global level, but also in the individual pieces, right? There's a difference between telling a client, this is what you can generally expect, versus this is what we are going to do today, and this is how your users are going to be impacted today, right? Those are very different things. Start that process well in your onboarding, so that your clients get used to that's how you're going to work as you move forward with that relationship with them. Because of course, onboarding is that first thing you do with the client, at least for the most part. The next thing I want to talk about is filming an onboarding video. If you watch any of my videos about creating video for your MSP, you know that using video to communicate to users is an important piece. I actually think you should create a video for onboarding all of your new clients, right? And use this as part of your go live, and maybe even part of the process as you work your way through it. But the idea is that if you have a video that basically says, welcome to my company's support structure, this is how we work and this is how we do things, this is what you can expect from us, those kinds of things, to make sure that folks are able to see it, especially for the ones that maybe didn't make it to the go live meeting, or maybe you didn't have a chance to do a go live meeting or whatever. But the idea is that you leverage video to make their life a little bit easier and make your life a little bit easier as well. In this video, you can talk about doing certain things like how to do remote access and how to access these other things, how to create a ticket, like all of the different pieces that you would want to communicate to them on a broad level. This is a really good opportunity for you to do that there. And tip number 5 is, like I mentioned before, but this is really important to dive into, is do a review and wrap up of every onboarding meeting. Now, I would do a couple things. Thing one is I would certainly review your own process, right? Don't just do the onboarding and move on. Do the onboarding and learn from it. That's a really important piece. And the thing here is that you want to understand a couple things. One, did you get the project done on time? And then ideally on budget as well. But sometimes people do onboardings as a little bit of a loss leader, so not the end of the world there. But understand how well you did versus the budgeted time, because that's an important piece. What are things that you could have done differently or better for the client? What things could you have done differently or better for your internal team that you're handing off to? What things did you not have documented properly? Like work your way through it and learn from each one of these things. But I would also encourage you to query your clients. Wrap up the go live and you say, all right, ready to go. And then give it a couple weeks and then check back in with the client. Hey, how did we do? Did we do a good job for you? Did we give you the information you were looking for? Did we do all of the different pieces that you expected us to do? Now, the idea isn't for them to crap on what you did, but the idea is you want to get some feedback about how you did, because again, you're trying to iterate them, make it better over time. And if you don't spend the time to ask the questions and do some of these other pieces, it's really hard to understand how well you did. So spend some time on this, and I think you should spend time on this for every project, but onboarding is in particular, because again, this is a relationship defining project for your client, and you want to get great at it, not just good at it. Onboarding isn't about just checking the boxes off. Onboarding is about building this relationship with your client. I say it all the time. We live in a relationship business. This is not something that you can just breeze past, do the bare minimum on, and expect things to go well. If you spend a little bit extra time and effort on just leveling up the process just a little bit, and you do that consistently over time, your MSP will be better off for it as well. I'm gonna drop the use case video for using video within your MSP up over here. I'm gonna drop the playlist for all of my onboarding videos over here. Thanks for coming on this ramble with me, and hope to see you on the next one.